Hey everybody! So in this video, we're going to be talking about synthetic and long division. Now, with division, you're used to working with something like you learned back in elementary school. So for example, let's say if I had this. Let's say if I had 19 and I wanted to divide this by 3. So what you would say is you want 3 to be as close to 19 as you could possibly make it. So I'm going to take this 3 and I'm going to say, what could I multiply it by in order to get 19? Because that's really the question that you're asking when you divide. Well, 3 can't multiply to be 19, but it can get really close. So here I could say, all right, 3 times 6 will give me 18. And then what you're used to doing is saying, all right, let's subtract this balance. So 19 minus 8 gives me 1. 3 cannot go into 1, so this 1 is a remainder. And then your answer would be this: 6, the whole number, and 1 over 3, the remainder over what you started dividing by. So this is how you learn to do long division when you were younger. We're going to do the exact same concept, except now what we're going to do is we're going to use polynomials. So I'll rewrite this: x squared plus 3x minus 43, and then I will divide it by x plus 8. So here we have x plus 8. Now, it's the same concept. You're trying to see what you would multiply x plus 8 by in order to get this quadratic x squared plus 3x minus 43. So here, I'm going to say, what do I multiply x by in order to get x squared? Well, x times x gives me x squared. So I'm going to put my x here above this x. So I don't want to put x above x squared. You'll see why later. Now what I'll do is just like in the last problem where I had 3 times 6, and that gave me the 18. Now we're going to say x times x plus 8. So here I'm going to say x times x gives me x squared. X times 8 gives me 8x. Now, with division, you subtracted this number here. But what's different about doing this with polynomials is that this is a binomial. So this negative has to be distributed to the x squared and to the 8. So it may even be easier not even to write it like this, but what if instead I just changed all the signs? So here we'll erase this, and I'll come through and I'll now say, all right, this is going to be a negative x squared and a negative 8x. So these two signs should cancel. X squared minus x squared, that is 0. 3 minus 8x gives me negative 5x. And then just like with old school division, this number would come down and then you would do this all over again. Now I say, okay, here's x plus 8. What do I multiply x by in order to get negative 5x? Well, that would be negative 5. And now we multiply. What's x times negative 5? And that's negative 5x. And what's positive 8 times negative 5? And that's negative 40. And now we will subtract this binomial. So here, I'm going to make this a positive, and this negative 40 a positive. So negative 5x plus 5x, these cancel. Negative 43 plus 40 gives me negative 3. Now, x cannot go into negative 3. So this negative 3 is going to be my remainder. So my solution will be x minus 5 minus 3, and this 3 will be over what we were dividing by, x plus 8. So that will be my quotient. That will be my answer to my division problem. X minus 5, and then the remainder is negative 3 over x plus 8. Now, this method on the left is using long division. There is another way that we could divide this that's a little bit shorter, and it's called synthetic division. Now, some people like using synthetic division. Some people prefer long division. Really, it's whatever helps you the most. So let's go ahead and set it up here. With synthetic division, what you'll do is you will take this, what you're dividing by, x plus 8. So we're only going to work with this number here, the 8, and we're going to go ahead and change its sign. So here I have negative 8, and we're only going to use the coefficients from this polynomial. So I'm going to use x squared plus 3x minus 43. I'm only going to use the coefficients. So 1, positive 3, and negative 43. So here I have 1, I have positive 3, and I have negative 43. And what I'll do is I'll draw a little line here. And the process starts. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this 1 down. And then I'll multiply this negative 8 times the 1. So negative 8 times 1 gives me negative 8. And then here you're going to add 3 plus negative 8. 3 plus negative 8 gives me negative 5. And then we multiply again. Negative 8 times negative 5 is positive 40. And now we'll add. Negative 43 plus 40 gives us negative 3. Now here, this last number is always going to be the remainder. And then the 1 and the 5 are the coefficients for the quotient. So since this started with an x squared here, this 1 is going to have a coefficient of x, and the 5 is going to be the constant. So here I'm going to have an x minus 5 with the remainder of negative 3. So that remainder, negative 3, would go over what I was dividing by, x plus 8. So here, just so it doesn't look like there's that odd gap, I'm just going to take this negative and bring it down right here. So I have x plus 5 minus 3 over x plus 8. And you'll notice you'll get the exact same answer, and you do a lot less work. So let's do a few more examples doing this process here. So we'll start by multiplying. What do I multiply n by to make it look like 2n squared? And that is 2n. So n times 2n gives me 2n squared. Negative 7 times 2n gives me negative 14n. So here I'll draw my line and I'll change my signs. So this will now be minus and this will now be plus. The 2n squareds go away. Negative 16n plus 14n is negative 2n. And now we'll start this over. What do I multiply n by to get negative 2n? And that's going to be negative 2. And now we multiply. What's n times negative 2? Well, that's negative 2n. We forgot to bring down our 19. And then negative 7 times negative 2 gives me positive 14. So here I'll draw my line and I'll change my signs. So I'll make this a positive and this positive. I'll make a negative. So my two ends cancel. 19 minus 14 gives me 5. So this 5 is my remainder. So when I write this out, I will have 2n minus 2. My remainder is positive, so I'll say plus 5 over what I was dividing by, n minus 7. So we'll see the same process over here, and this time we'll do it with synthetic division. So I'll take my n minus 7. I'm only going to be working with the 7. I'll go ahead and change its sign. So here it's positive 7, and I'm only working with the coefficients here. So I have 2, negative 16, and positive 19. So I'll come right here, I'll draw my line, and I will bring down the positive 2. So here, 7 times 2 gives me 14. I'll now add negative 16 plus 14 is negative 2. 7 times negative 2 is negative 14. I'll now add 19 plus negative 14 is positive 5. The 5 here, always the number at the end, is the remainder. Here, because in my problem I started with n squared, that means this first coefficient is just going to be the n. And then this 2 will be the constant, and the 5 will be the remainder. So you'll have 2n minus 2. The remainder is positive, so I'll say plus 5 over n minus 7. So you see that you're getting the exact same answer using the two different methods. Now let's look at an example where we have more than 3 terms. So when we write this out, we're going to have y to the third. So we start here by saying, what do we multiply y by in order to get y to the third? And that's going to be y squared. So now we'll multiply y times y squared gives me y to the third. Negative 2 times y squared gives me negative 2y squared. And now I'll draw my line, and I will change my signs. So I'll come through here, and I'll make this a negative and this a positive. So the y to the thirds cancel. 5y squared plus 2y squared gives me 7y squared. And then here, we'll bring down the minus 7y. So I'll say, what do I multiply y by to get 7y squared? And that's going to be 7y. So 7y times y gives me 7y squared. 7y times negative 2 gives me negative 14y. I'll draw my line, and then I'll change my signs. So I'll make this a negative, this a positive. So my 7y squareds go away. Negative 7 plus 14. This gives me negative 7y. And then the 2 here is going to come down. So y times what gives me negative 7y? And that's going to be negative 7. And then negative 7 times negative 2 gives me positive 14. And now I'll draw my line, and I'll change my signs. So my 7y's cancel, and I'm left with negative 12, and this is my remainder. So my solution is going to be y squared plus 7y minus 7. This remainder is negative, so I'm going to say minus 12 over y minus 2. Now, when I do this with synthetic division, I should get the exact same answer. So we're going to start with this, the y minus 2. We're going to take this 2 and change the sign. And then we're only going to work with the coefficients. So here, this is going to be positive 1. In front of the y squared is a positive 5. In front of the y is a negative 7. And my constant is positive 2. So I bring the first number down, and I get 1. And then I'll say 2 times 1 is 2. Here, I'll add 5 plus 2 is 7. Multiply 2 times 7 is 14. Add, I'll get negative 7. Multiply, and then add again, and I'll get negative 12. This last number here is always the remainder. So even if it were 0, you would just have no remainder here. Now, you started off with y cubed. So in your solutions, this is going to be the y squared, this is going to be the y, the 7 is going to be the constant, and then the negative 12 will be your remainder. So your solution here is y squared plus 7y minus 7. Your solution is negative, so I'll say minus 12 over y minus 2. And we get the exact same solution here. Now, let's look and see what happens if I'm dividing and I'm missing a power. So here, this starts with k to the third, and then I go to negative 17k plus 32. Now, when you're doing your division, you have to represent every power. So if you start at 3, then you should have a power of k squared, and then you should have your k and then your constant. So what we'll add here is a plus 0 k squared. And now the process starts just like it has with the previous problems. I'll say, okay, here's k. What do I multiply k by to give me k to the third? And that's going to be k squared. So k times k squared gives me k to the third. 5 times k squared is 5k squared. So now I'll draw my line and I'll change my signs. So I'll make this a negative and this here a negative. So my k to the thirds go away. 0 minus 5k squared is negative 5k squared, and I'll bring down the negative 17k. So here I'll say, what do I multiply k by to get negative 5k squared? And that is negative 5k. And then positive 5 times negative 5k is negative 25k. Now I'll draw my line and I'll change my sign. So I'll make this a positive and this a positive. So my 5k squareds cancel and I'm left with 8k, and my 32 will come down. So I'll say, what do I multiply k by to get 8k? And that's going to be 8. Positive 5 times 8 is positive 40. I'll draw my line and I'll change my signs. My 8k's cancel and I'm left with negative 8. So my solution here would be k squared minus 5k plus 8. My remainder here is negative, so I'll say minus 8 over what I divided by, k plus 5. Now, the process is going to be the exact same for synthetic division. You still are going to include that 0k squared. So you're almost using the coefficients from your long division problem here. So we're going to go ahead and say that negative 5 is the number we're starting with. And our coefficients are going to be 1 by the k to the third. K squared, that coefficient is 0. by the k, that is negative 17, and then I have 32 as my constant. So we bring down the 1. Negative 5 times 1 is negative 5, and then I add. 0 plus negative 5 is negative 5. Now we multiply. Negative 5 and negative 5 give me positive 25. Negative 17 plus 25 gives me 8. Negative 5 times 8 is negative 40. And this gives me the negative 8. And this is going to be my remainder. So this started with k to the third. So my solutions, this would be my k squared, k, and my constant. So I have k squared minus 5k plus 8 minus 8 over what I divided by, which was k plus 5. And that's going to be it. That's how you use long and synthetic division. And then don't forget, when you have a missing power, all you're doing is including that 0 to fill in for the missing variable. All right, that's going to be all for this video. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments, and I'll get back to them as soon as I can. All right, we'll see you all in the next video.